will be containing the latest version, or one version at a time, you can say it that way. But in your EME, for all the objects, we will be having multiple versions right from the start when the project was created. Right. Is this diagram explaining the EME repository and the sandboxes. So every Abinitio environment comes with a default project called standard environment. In short, it is called STD-ENV. So it's a global environment project which will be included into every other project in Abinitio, whatever we create. And the projects are broadly divided, or the sandboxes are broadly divided into two categories, like public sandboxes and private sandboxes. We'll see about more of them in the later slides. So at this point of time, public sandboxes will contain the generic objects which are reusable by other projects. So whenever you have a generic graph or a generic parameter, you will be placing it in the public sandbox, so that that particular sandbox will be included under other private sandboxes. So the objects from public sandboxes can be reused. On the other hand, the the private sandboxes are the ones which have the private objects, and those objects are not meant to be shared. So let's see the details of sandbox. So sandbox is a collection of graphs and related files that are stored in a single directory for the purpose of version control, navigation and migration. So instead of creating instead of placing all the graphs and its associated objects in a single folder, Abinitio provides us a way to organize the objects in the form of sandbox. So the sandbox corresponds to a project in the source control environment, that is in the EME, and it will be regarded as the user work area. So whatever we have in the EME project, we will be having an exact replica whenever you start the first time. But after some time, like whenever you when you are editing the graph and then you are going through the releases, your sandbox content will be updated, and as time goes on, you will be checking out and checking in the objects. So why we are having sandbox? Projects held in the EME data store cannot be manipulated directly. We can see the objects, we can view the graph files, like how we view the DML, except for everything, and we can check the permissions. Those kind of things we can do, but we cannot directly edit on the project. So to work on the projects, they must be checked out to a working area on the file system, where we can develop and modify the code. This particular working area on the file system is known as sandbox. It has exactly the same data directory structure. And next point, like each object that needs to be worked on is checked out to a sandbox where modifications or enhancements are carried out. So after the changes are complete, the code is checked in from the sandbox area to the EME data store. And main point is, this action creates a new version of code in the EME data store. It will not replace the earlier version, it will create a new version that will have new version number. So this is structure of a project in EME. So all the Abinitio environment projects will be housed under the folder /projects with a capital P. So under /projects, you will be having multiple projects, and projects can be grouped under a particular folder also. So sandbox location will be given to you. Either you have to create your sandbox in that particular location, or you can create the sandbox in your home directory. So everyone will follow this same directory notation, like in your home directory create a folder called sandbox and then place all your sandbox within that folder. So we will be creating like this, so that it will be easy to work on.
And the sandbox will be on the Unix server?
No, this co-op also resides on your Unix server.
Okay.
And the sandbox resides on your Unix server, the file system.
Okay.
Suppose you are working on, I am working on claims and you are working on medbill. You will be creating a sandbox for medbill and I will be creating a sandbox for. And these folders are created just for clarity, so that we will not mess up with the folder locations.
Right. So when I create a sandbox, do I need to create the folders first and then create a sandbox in GD?
When creating the, actually when checking out the initial time, you have to provide the sandbox location. If the particular folder is not available, it will get automatically created for you. Actually, the checkout window will ask that you create the new directory or not.
Okay.
And also you can create the directories beforehand to the checkout, and when checking out, it will not. If the directories are already present,
I'm not able to understand. Like it's breaking.
Okay. Is it fine now?
Yeah, yeah.
And if your directories are already created, it will directly proceed to the checkout window.
Okay.
After this claims directory, you will have all the MP or DML, this stuff. And we have the hierarchy, like MP folder will be having your graph, run folder will be having your deployed shell scripts, XFR folder for transform files, DML folder for record format files, DB folder for DBC file, bin folder to store any tools and utilities. If you have any shells, them under bin folder, and SQL folder will have SQL query with .SQL file names. In addition to this, you will have plans and psets.
Okay, and like the SQL queries is basically for the execute SQL component, right?
Yes, run SQL component. If you have any particular SQL stored in the, it's mostly like straightforward. Like when the particular SQL is reusable, or you think that it will be used in a later stage, it is advisable to store as file. And most of the time, the hard coding will not be happening, and it is not recommended. But if you feel that this particular SQL or particular DML will not be used anywhere at all, then you can embed it.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will be in the form of files. Use file option.
And please tell me again, what is bin?
So bin directory will be having the shell scripts or any other utilities which you have developed, like mostly shells. You remember this run program component, right?
Right.
Yeah. Suppose you can develop a simple program to send an email or a check for a file, and then you can save it as a script, and then you can place it there. If required, you can use it anywhere in any of the graphs under this particular project. And so the difference between sandbox and EME project, I have already told this to you. I'll just read out the slides. Sandboxes are work areas used to develop, test, or run code. Only one version of the code can be held within the sandbox at any time. The EME contains all versions of the code that have been checked into it. A particular sandbox is associated with only one project, whereas a project can be checked out to a number of sandboxes. This is clear, right? Actually, the project to sandbox, it is one to many. One project, but user sandboxes will be more according to the number of developers. This is a picture which is showing the connection between project versus the sandbox. So in the right side we have project 1, and we have 5 versions for a particular file, an object, and this side, left side, we are having the user sandbox, the corresponding sandbox, and for the same object we are having the latest version. When we take the objects from project to sandbox, it is checkout, and when we bring back in, it is check-in.
So if, let's say I was using one graph, right?
Okay.
I had checked it out and I check in back. Now this is version 5. Now you
Yes.
go ahead and check it out,
Yes.
right? And you check in, so it becomes version 6.
Yes.
Right? But my sandbox will have version 5, right?
Yeah. Yes. And
yours will have version 6, which is equivalent to what is in EM.
and one more thing is, you cannot lock and edit an object unless it is the latest version in the sandbox.
My local environment, which is my sandbox, will have the older version in comparison to yours, because you checked in and checked out, like checked out and checked in.
Okay.
Right.
So after the any development completed by other developers, the other same developers in the same team should check out the new code so that they will get the updates.
Okay.
So after that, because if you are having a big team, you may not know what are the objects that are changing daily. So it's a better practice to check out every day. Even in the
need to explicitly lock it, right?
yes. Yes.
Okay. It's unlike our configuration system, like config management tool, wherein when you check out, you automatically lock it.
It's not like the usual SharePoint configurations, like when we if you're editing an Excel file, you have to check out and then it will be checked out to you in your name, others cannot edit it. You are saying about that thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like that. We have to issue and lock explicitly.
Okay.
And even in if someone has updated your code, and if you have opened that particular graph, it will be shown in the sandbox, like using the different notations we can see. So let me see whether I have slide for it. So in the sandbox window, right, you are having now organizer in the right side, correct? So in addition to the organizer, when you are working on a particular sandbox, you will be having the sandbox view.
Okay.
So in the sandbox view, you will be having different folders, and in that folders, when your EME connection is enabled, when you mouse over the particular object, it will show like whether this particular version of the object is latest, or it requires a checkout because the other developers has included a new check-in version. So those information we can get it from the sandbox view itself.
Okay.
But now we cannot check it because since we don't have EME. But when you open the particular graph also, in the GD status bar, like in the bottom, it will show like in which sandbox it is opened.
Okay.
That can be seen. Probably you can also try that. When you can try to open the sandbox and then place a graph in the empty folder of your sandbox, so that in the sandbox view you can view that, like in a tree view.
Okay. I haven't started using sandbox yet, so I'll do that after the meeting, after this training, and I'll check it out.
Okay. Okay, next is repository connection settings. So this connection settings window are similar to host settings, was there previously for the older versions. Now in the newer versions, we don't need to explicitly specify the connection. When we specify the host settings, after that we will be performing a checkout. So when we perform a checkout, the connection will be automatically established. We don't need to explicitly specify the connection settings like this. So once we check out, the connection between your sandbox and the project will be automatically established, because you will be given the particular project location and the EME location. So using that parameters, the connection will be automatically established. And in any case, if you do not want your sandbox to be associated to your project, you can disable the EME connection at any time.
And what's the advantage or disadvantage of not having a...
No advantage, it will be disadvantage only. So you will not be having the version control capabilities. So, and if by any chance, like if your connection is broken, you can refresh it again by checking that whether it is disabled or not. So when you click on the repository or project, you will have the refresh all EME connections option as well as disable EME connection. So when you disable an EME connection, like, you are free to edit your object. You no longer need to lock your object because it is not in the version control with the project. But you may miss this particular advantage of having the version control, and you will not be able to create a new version in your EME.
Okay.
So let's check about the repository connection settings. EME data stores a specific instance of EME. Okay, at any point of time, user can connect to only one EME repository. Similar to this co-op, EME is also a product which needs to be installed in your. So the co-op installation is at AB home, right? So we'll be having the installation now in your Windows machine. The co-op is installed at C Abinitio, right?
Yep.
So similar to that, EME will also be installed in your file system. So it will be having C colon and then Abinitio EME, something like that. A path will be like that. So to access the EME data store, go to project EME data store settings in the GD. We have to fill up the connection settings. So it looks similar to the host settings dialog. Save the settings for later use, and then we have to specify the connection method, host name where the EME is located, username and password, that will be your Unix username and password, then co-op location, then EME data store location, and the mode. This method was there earlier, explicitly specify the EME data store connections before your check-in checkout process. Now this is not, this is duplicate. Let's discuss about the types of project. As the name suggests, they will be having the agenda. So how can they be shared? In every project that you create, standard environment project, that is the global environment project, will be included by default. In addition to that, for every applications, there will be certain public projects. For example, like looking into our project scenario, like for IBM, we can house all the generic objects under IDM common or IDM shared. So your project naming convention will be like this. It ends with common or public, something like this. So you can identify that it is a public project. And, when the projects are created in the EME by administrators, the private or public project is set. And when it is set as a public project, you can see that public project included under every private project that is meant for that application. So if you are having three applications in three projects in the IDM application, then claims will have IDM common, Medbill will have IDM common, and Express will have IDM common.
So that is automatic.
That's not automatic, we have to include it. When the project is created in the EME, that will be done by the administrators. And when checkout also, you can see that this public project is already included by default. You have to specify the sandbox that was created for the public project. And Similar to the private project, the public project needs to have the sandbox in the file system, and this particular private project and the standard environment project, they have the sandboxes also, which are maintained by the administrators. So those sandboxes will be in the generic location. You will be giving the sandbox location for them when you are doing the checkout. I mean for the public projects.
Okay.
And mostly you will not be having the permissions to edit the objects in the public projects. Whenever you need to include a generic object, so you need to get this special permission from the Abinitio administrators, and you have to create an object. So in an Abinitio environment, the super user ID will be Abinitio mostly, and the individual IDs, you will not be having the permission to edit the objects in public projects.
Okay.
So the corresponding sandbox for ITM Carbon will be in a location like this. Apps Abinitio data public ITM Carbon. So if there are multiple applications, it will be under different folder, ENT, then application, and then that public project. And your standard environment project will also be here. Got it?
Yes. And I have a question.
Yeah.
Why can't a public project be similar to a private project, just like you and I make changes to the common project as well?
No, not every users will be given access to the public projects, because the objects are shared among multiple projects, right?
To avoid any kind of failures, because I introduce something and it causes problem in all the applications. Okay.
Yes.
If that is not the case, like if I'm ready for that exposure, is it possible to have similar kind of sandbox for public projects as well? Just like I have my own sandbox for my public project and you have your own sandbox.
That can be done, because you can check out a public sandbox into a user specific one, but you will not be able to check in back into the EME. Correct? So what you're asking is, suppose you want to have this public project on your own, so you'll be creating a sandbox under your location. You can do this, like
And even if I have the permission, I can check back in, right?
no, but not from this location.
Why not?
So it will show you like you will not have the check-in permission, because you won't have the check-in permission to check it back in, because you will not be having the edit permissions in the project, right?
What I am asking is that, is it possible to have a public project very similar to a private project? It's just that it's public. Rest everything, the checking in and checking out behavior be the same. Like, can there be such thing, or what I am asking is not possible?
There is no particular difference between public and project. It is the real difference is among the sharing options only. Other than that, your directory structure, the objects, there is no real difference, and the public project is set public because it houses the generic objects, and the users will not be granted access because of the privacy issues.
Right.
And,
but they can be given, right?
It can be given. Because of privacy issues, it is not given. So only the Abinitio super user ID will be having the access to check in or make changes into the EME for the public projects.
Right.
That's the only restriction. For the other projects, you will be having the write permissions. So even when you try to check in the public project, you will be getting an error like you don't have access to this EME object. So that error will come.
Okay. And what is the purpose of the standard environment?
Standard environment will house the generic objects application wide. So we have the public project for IDM application, right? Suppose we have a different application called SDM. And okay, let's have the directory structure here. So all these projects are under IDM. Now let's see, like we have a different application called SDM. So we will be having a public project for it, like SDM common project CMD SDM center. So basically I'm writing out all the projects in my environment. So that comes to my name SDM and then ISO. Okay. So these are 3 projects which are under the application SDM. So they are in the different folder. And this IDM common objects will not be shared among this call center and ISO ops project. The reason is that they belong to different applications and their objects are not meant to be shared. But in any case, if you have a generic object which is generic across applications, you can maintain that in your standard environment project. So there will be application wide and machine specific settings and application wide parameters, application wide generic graphs. So those things will be there in your standard environment project. For example, like your extract graph. When you can have an extract graph in the standard environment, and if your application uses or is in the requirement of a similar extract graph, you can use that, reuse that, or you can develop a particular extract graph for your application alone in the IDM common. If you feel that the
what is an extract graph like?
Extracting from a table and loading into a file.
Okay.
Yeah. Because some may require sorting before the file, some may not require. So those kind of options. So SCDNV will house the application wide generic objects. Is it clear?
Yeah. And let's say if the project is not that vast, it's a single area project. So is it mandatory to have a standard environment?
Yes, it is mandatory. It comes with every Abinitio environment installation. Once you install the co-op or once you install the EME, standard ENV comes by default. And whenever you create a new project, standard ENV will be included under every project.
And it may or may not have anything, right?
Yes, right. Usually it will have parameters. Your data mount parameters will be there in your STDNV, and in every project, as yesterday we have created on sandbox, right? It has some 5 parameters, right? To MP directory, DML directory. So similar to that, STDNV will be having multiple location specific parameters. Instead of hard coding, we will be using those parameters, and we will be using the parameters for data directory points also. So this AI serial we are using, right? So that AI serial will be defined in every project. Okay.
And again, anything in the standard environment will be restricted to the Abinitio administrator, right?
Yes, yes. Can we continue?
Yep.
So the last point, public project is public in the sense that the data and metadata are expected to be shared with other projects, and private project the opposite. It's not meant to be shared. Okay. Next is STDNV environment project. So this is a special project associated with every instance of Abinitio environment. There is no regular difference. There is no difference from a regular project in the structure. It contains machine and application specific settings. So here you go, like the data directory mount, max core settings, application wide max core settings, and then application wide parameters like current date, which are used across all projects. So these are the things which are present in the STDNV project.
Okay.
And during creation of any project, STDNV is included in it by default. A single STDNV is required for an entire set of applications on a single machine and sharing a single EME data store. So for every Abinitio installation, one STDNV is enough.
Okay.
So typically in an Abinitio environment, like you will be having multiple co-op installations. So you will be using co-op version 2.3, 2.4 whenever a new version is released. So your administrators will be installing a new co-op version, and they will be asking you to use the, or they will be asking you to point to the new co-op installation whenever you are upgrading.
Okay.
So at that time, what you have to do is you have to recreate all your objects in the newer version. If it is a major change or if it is a minor change, you will not have any work to do. If it is a major change like changing from 1.13 to 3.4, you may have to recreate the graphs. So rather than just saving the graphs in the newer version. Like recreating the graphs in the sense, some components may be deprecated. So in that sense, you have to replace it with new components. If it is a minor version change like patch updates, then you can save the particular graph in the newer version itself. Those options will be provided to you.
So when the components get deprecated, is it not possible to use them at all?
You can still use them, the backward compatibility is there, but not extensively. Like you cannot use a 1.10 component which is deprecated in 3.2 version. We have a deprecated folder, but it will not house all the components because like which component I can say, there are multiple components that was deprecated. You can see that in the deprecated folder itself. If you are using that component, then Abinitio loading your save file in the QEME, the objects will be updated in the EME with newer versions. So after that, the QA users will be checking out the individual projects to the QA sandboxes, and they will be performing the QA testing. So once that testing is over, then we will use the particular save file to the production. We will migrate the save file again, and there we will load the save file again. So when we load it, that production EME will get updated. Then we have to perform the checkout into the production sandboxes so that your sandboxes will get updated, and for the next day when your production jobs run, it will pick up the latest code. So this is how a release goes.
Okay. And does a developer do this thing or do administrators do this thing?
Mostly administrators or the QA migration team, let me say. Like in my previous team, actually we used to do till the save file creation. In the current team, we are doing till the tag name creation.
Okay.
So it depends on the project. Mostly you will be creating only the tag, or even you will be having the you'll be leaving the tag creation job to the migration team. Once you check in the objects, you will be specifying these are the objects which are going for this release. You can create tag and proceed with the migration. You will be just sending out an email with the objects information, object names alone. So they will be creating a tag and they will be migrating. If they require you to create a tag, then you have to create the tag using the built-in commands, and then you can provide the tag name alone.
I am trying to visualize it and compare it with another another system. We used to have a configuration management system called implementer, right?
Okay.
I would assume that the tag here refers to kind of a move request, wherein
Okay.
that move request has all the objects which needs to be migrated,
Okay.
right? And then we used to execute that move request, and all the objects used to get moved from dev to QA, and then again we used to move it from QA to P stage and P stage to production.
Okay. Okay. I'm not aware of any other management systems. Actually, I know one name like CVS or DVS something. It is also a source code or version control system that is widely used for any other tools also.
Okay.
Even I have heard like one of the Abinitio project in my friends company, they are using CVS because they haven't about the EME license, so they are using CVS for their Abinitio environment.
Oh, is it CVS or SVC?
I'm not sure. It's like some CVS. I don't know about the entire like the expansion.
SVC I think is a freeware kind of thing. Tortoise SVC. Like we used to use it for checking out, version controlling, for something related to our PMO office documents.
Okay, okay. Then it might be the one. Okay. Next up, version numbers. The last point. Version numbers, which are integers and tags, are global to the whole EME data store. So one version number will not be there for the other objects because we can access the individual versions using the version number. Suppose like one particular object is having a version number of 7, so that version number 7 will not be used for other objects. Tags are the basic units during migration.
I didn't get it. Sorry. You're trying to say that one graph has version 7, so another graph cannot have version 7?
Yeah, right. Because we can access the individual versions of objects using the version number.
So, how will the version number be? Like, will it be some 10-digit version number or something?
Not 10 digits. So whatever I see, it like 13,450, something like that.
Okay.
They are global to every application in your Abinitio environment.
Okay. Normally, this is the first time I'm hearing this, because what I had heard was that version was specific to that particular object, right? So that particular object, version 1, that particular object, version 2. And if it's some other object, it can be version 1 and version 2. But herein, you're saying that the version number is also unique.
Okay, because we can, when we are trying to view a particular object in the EME, if you are not specifying the version number, it will show you the latest version. And optionally, you can specify the version number also. So if you are specifying the version number globally, then it will create a problem, right, when reading the file. So because of that, we are having this global versioning system. Okay, so we'll see about only this checkout and we will close today's session. So this is checkout window. So to navigate to the checkout window, we have to go to project and then click on checkout. So after we click on checkout, we will be presented with this checkout wizard dialog box.
Karthik, before that,
yeah.
Where is that project? Is that a new menu or something, or where is that project?
this project is not present in the menu bar
No,
in
I
the
see. I
or
see.
repository,
Repository. Okay.
something like that.
Yeah, repository and then create project or edit project are there, but no specific project link.
No, it will not be create project. There should be an option called checkout
Okay, yeah, it is there.
in the repository itself or project.
Okay. And for
So
me,
when
it is
we have,
giving error that no path or no repository path set.
you haven't set the repository connection settings, right? So yeah, this is the issue. When in the earlier versions, we have to specify the connection settings before trying to check out. But in the newer versions, once you specify the host settings, you can directly check out by using this window. So once you click on the checkout window, you will be specifying the AME location. So in the checkout dialog box, you will be specifying which project you are connecting to. So here we don't have the server in, EME information, right? In the newer versions, that information is included in this checkout window. So basically, like you can connect to any EME. So provided you have the access, and then you can check out the objects. So it will be like EME name. So you have to specify the EME name, which is similar. That is the installation path. So EME name will be like projects, EME, repo, something like that. And then you have to specify which project you are trying to check out, and then the sandbox directory, which is going to hold the objects. Like this. Your project directory, and then your sandbox directory, and then your host settings which you are trying to use. Whether you want to use the particular dev connection settings, you will be using your host login and then the sandbox directory. And if this particular sandbox directory is not available, it will be created automatically after getting your confirmation.
Yeah.
And here's some advanced options are listed. So always for the checkout, the latest version will be checked out. When you want an earlier version, you can choose from the available list of versions.
And the reason I would check out an earlier version is if I have to roll back something out, right?
Yes. Otherwise, you will be always doing the latest version.
Right.
So this is the warning message. This is sandbox path is not a directory, create it. So you'll get something like this.
Okay. And just a clarification, if I am checking out an old version, and if I, let's say I'm rolling back something, so when I check in again, it will be creating a new version, right? Rather,
Right.
5, 6 and 7 will be created, which will be equal to 5.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yes. And you cannot do a normal check-in of the whatever you have checked out in the earlier versions, right? You cannot do a normal check-in. So basically when you are trying to edit an earlier version object, you have to make that as the latest version, and then you have to edit. So to make that as the latest version, you have to use the force check-in option.
What check-in?
Because force check-in, because Abinitio doesn't allows you to edit directly and an earlier version object.
Okay.
If you want to issue a lock, it should be the latest version in the EMB.
Okay.
Otherwise, you cannot edit the object. If you're trying to edit it, it will say like the object is not the latest version. Do you want to check out or check in? It will say you want it. And after this window, it will create the directory, and the next window is the common objects window. So you will be prompted to enter the sandbox locations of std env and any projects associated with the project unless the sandbox has already these values specified or the sandbox is a pre-existing one. So first time when you're checking out, you need to be providing all these sandbox values, and for the next times, like for maybe the second or third time, you don't need to provide because it saves the values, it remembers the values, notes whatever is changed exactly from the earlier version to this in this latest version, and whatever patches have been upgraded. So those all those things will be there in your help file.
Okay. And Karthik, in general,
Mhm.
from a developer perspective, what all things do you do except for creating graphs in GDB? Like,
Only these
first
things.
of all, whatever you do, how much part of your job is creating graphs versus the other thing? And secondly, what all activities or what all things do you do except for graphs?
Okay.